It's a sign of how two sporting fortunes have changed. BBC interviewing an Australian journalist as part of a wider investigation into why we have performed so poorly on the medal tally compared to previous Olympics and compared to the dominance of Great Britain.
To see you being outperformed in sports where you dominate, in the pool, in the velodrome as well, has been a huge surprise to us. In my investigation, it seems that whilst Britain has spent a lot of money on sport because of 2012, and there's this talk of inspire a generation and leaving a legacy. That's the big challenge now for Team GB. I get the feeling, just by chatting to fellow journalists, is that the income streams don't seem to be going into Australian sport as much as they have been in Team GB. Now that bucks the trend, because for years Australia and America and China ploughed huge amounts of resources into sport and left the UK standing, and that was replicated in the amount of gold medals.
In the past 3 Olympic Games, Australia has finished top 6 with at least 14 golds, beating Great Britain in Sydney and Athens. The Age senior sports writer Caroline Wilson says since the Sydney Olympics, not enough funding has been directed into grassroots sport.
The legacy has to be kids playing sport and sport in schools, and the Olympic Committee is pointing the finger at the government, saying that the money's not being spent wisely and you're not doing enough for sport in schools. They're pointing the finger at the Olympic movement, saying you have $100 million in the bank and you've had that as a result of the Sydney Olympics. Why aren't you spending it?
Not spending the money on coaches may be proving costly.
What I found is that a lot of the sports in which we're doing well in, we have Australian coaches. For example, Shane Sutton in the cycling is an Australian who is now coaching Bradley Wiggins and a few of our cyclists over here. China have got Australian coaches, swimming coaches. And then I was talking to another chap earlier today who said that New Zealand, the women's hockey team, they're through to the semi-finals. Australia have not made it. New Zealand are coached by an Australian.
Coaches are angry because they're getting all these great athletes and they're producing them. The minute they start to produce the results, they're all being centralised and taken away from their coaches. The coaches get disenchanted, leave the sport, and some of them go overseas. Another problem is that good athletes are coming to Australia because of our great conditions, and those international athletes are being coached by Australian coaches who are taking their time away from the Australian athletes.
It's been a frustrating Olympics for our cyclists, picking up just 1 gold medal to Anna Mears, who admits she's left scratching her head as to what's gone wrong.
There's a lot of hard work and a lot of people with Cycling Australia and the Australian Institute of Sport. A lot of funding's gone into it from the Australian Sports Commission to look at ways in which we can improve, and we've turned over every stone possible. You know, every 1% that we could gain, 1/4% that we could gain, and we were really, coming into this competition believing we would actually do better in the cycling program, but the British team have found it's almost really frustrating to see the form that the British team has across the board.
We've got to walk away from the Olympics with our heads held high, and a lot of us have come away with PBs. Maybe we haven't walked away with the gold medals that we all wanted, but at the end of the day we've been beaten. A couple of us have been beaten by some quality riders in world record time.
Hurdles gold medalist Sally Pearson says it's easy to become complacent, assuming a bag full of gold medals will just happen every 4 years.
You have to work hard for these things, and it's not easy being at the top of your game. I'm literally on the brink of destruction. Everyone has to be when they're at their best. You have to be pushing yourself to that limit, and it's not easy, and I don't think anyone realises how hard it is.
How do you think the campaign's been for Australia?
Bit sad, bit disappointing.
Yeah, I know the British kicked their ass in the velodrome. Isn't that right?
And the swimming team didn't perform as good as
the swimming team was pretty bad too.
In swimming, I think she came second.
It only means that in 4 years' time they're going to do very well.
We'll regroup, it'll be right, we'll be back for Rio.
It depends on if they can face the fact of what is causing them not to be able to win medals, and they can correct it, even right in the games, they can win more. So it's a matter of something has to change.
The only true indicator of whether change has occurred will be the medal tally in Rio in 4 years.